In 30 seconds, you will be witness to one of the greatest online events in the history of, well, online events. Descript proudly brings to you a topic that you deeply care about and whose name is the title of this online event. I'm Don. I am not your host. I am an overdub stock voice included for free with Descript. So, now, let's meet someone who actually works here.
Hello, everyone. I am that person that actually works here. My name is Jay LaBeouf, and I'm head of business development here at Descript. I am the host of our YouTube live stream. You might have seen me a few hundred times by now, but we bring on guests to make it more interesting. My guest this week is TJ Bonaventura, who is co-founder of StudioPod. StudioPod is a full-service podcast, media creation, and production company. They have offices in the beautiful Mission District of San Francisco. TJ, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Jay. Glad to be here. Glad to be participating.
So our goal in this seminar is we're going to talk about all of the features in Descript and also some collaboration strategies that allow a company like StudioPod to collaborate with storytellers, with producers, with clients, perhaps with other agencies. So those of you that are watching that really want to use Descript as the collaborative workhorse that it is, we're going to show you a lot of tips and tricks. And our goal today is to kind of walk you through some best practices of how a real studio does this work. To get started, a reminder, we want to make this session as interactive and enjoyable for all of you all as possible. So do me a favor in the YouTube comments. This is how we're going to ask questions. So just drop a note in there, say hi, let us know where you're connecting from. And TJ, do you have a question you want people to answer to get warmed up?
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to know when people listening here first got into podcasting, what year? That's what I want to know. That would be the most interesting thing to start it off to warm up a little bit.
All right. First get into podcasting and in what year? How about you? What would you say?
For me, I first got into it in 2016. Originally had an idea to start a studio when I was living in New York. I had a friend in San Francisco, tried to start one from scratch and realized it is a lot of work. And why isn't there a turnkey solution out there that would allow me to just record, hand off my audio, and then turn it into a beautiful podcast? And lo and behold, a few years later, StudioPod was born.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I am probably a couple of years earlier. Be tough to put something on there, but I could go back in my history. And my fun fact was first podcast was Radiolab, with someone saying like, you really need to check this thing out. And it was really the first time I listened to like really high sound design. Like for me, it just raised the bar on sound design. So I started in a good one. Chris is going to put some up on screen. Richard from Chicago, 2008, OG of podcasting.
Old school.
All right. London, 2016. Seattle. And first started podcasting in 2018. Amazing. Chris from Atlanta, listening 2007, producing in 2020. That's a very good thing to happen in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping tabs. Hey, who's this guy?
Julian's coming in here. My co-founder of StudioPod. 2018 as a podcaster, 2016 as a listener.
Nice. Awesome. This American Life is the first one. Fantastic. All right. So we're talking collaboration today. Let's do a few kind of terminology things that kind of help us out. TJ, do you mind sharing your screen?
Absolutely. Do the application. There we are.
All right. Cool. We're seeing that good. So what we're looking at is TJ's screen in Descript, and what is going to be helpful to introduce people to this thing on the screen, this internal company podcast dash episode 1. this is a project. So I'm just reintroducing these terms because we're going to use them all over the place. So a project is your kind of big, messy play space, and a project includes compositions. So you see his mouse hovering over these things. These are the documents within your project. You can use them to, let's say TJ and I have an interview. Maybe our full-length interview lives as one composition, and then another composition might be the trimmed down portions or the edits that we want to pull from there, or the selects. So we're going to talk through different ways to organize your compositions. Another thing we're going to talk about is the kind of project permissions. So by clicking on this share button, you see opens up a project access. So I talk a lot about Descript being like the Google Docs for audio and video editing. And with that same metaphor, TJ has a drive. In this case, it's called TJ's Drive. Everybody who joins Descript has a free drive that you can get started with, but you can also invite other people to that drive. You can also invite other people just to your project. So in this case, TJ has it set that other members of his drive can edit. And if you click over the Can Edit button, you can actually choose between, can they comment or can they not access? So if he just wanted to do this project by himself, it could be cannot access. Everybody else is locked out. With it Can Edit, let's say his partner Julian wants to get in there as well. As long as Julian is part of his drive, then he can collaborate on all those projects. The other setting would be anybody with the link. So the choices with anybody with the link are cannot access, which is the default, or also can comment. So in theory, TJ could send me that URL at the top of the screen. If he put it in Slack, if he put it on the YouTube comments, anybody on this channel would be able to open it up and comment on it. So that might be helpful in the future to know that all you need to do is share this link on the screen right now. It will open up the Descript project, and it'll also open up whatever the active composition is. So people are always centered in the right place. Now to have finer grained controls over it, you see a list of people in the bottom half of the screen. These are people at StudioPod and also some collaborators, perhaps freelancers, editors, clients that you want to have access to this. And you can, again, like a Google Doc, you can select whether they can edit, whether they can comment, or whether they own the project. In this case, like TJ, who can actually set permissions. So if TJ wanted to try to guess my email and type it poorly, then he could do that, and very nobly, exactly, and he'd click send, and then I could just get in there and I could start editing or even contributing new source material, creating new compositions very rapidly. So there we go. I think I wanted to kind of walk us through some of the basics. One more thing I do want to show is two more things I want to show. One is version history. So you see up at the top left where it says internal company podcast -episode 1 next to the Descript logo. On the upper left, there's that drop down caret. So if you click on that, a lot of people miss this. You can click on view version history, and then something will open up on the right side of the screen. So as TJ clicks on this, you can see, and for fun, click on show all revisions. And you can see every time a prominent change was made in this document. So Descript will detect whenever you've maybe deleted a block of text or contributed new material. And in this case, we have a whole bunch of saves. TJ, doesn't look like you've done very much in the past month on this, but then since we opened it up this morning, we've been making a lot of saves to the cloud. So with this, you can actually go back in time and access any previous version. We say that Descript is non-destructive. So not only can you have infinite number levels of undoing, but also you can always go back in time and get a previous version. Last thing I want to show you, is if you close out of that, we can see running down the right side of the screen are comments. So like a Google Doc, all you have to do is select some text that you want to comment on, or select a marker or whatever it is. And you can @mention anybody and get a little thread going in here. All right, we did our nuts and bolts and our basics. Now I'll turn it over to TJ, so you can actually kind of reintroduce StudioPod and why a collaborative workflow is important to the work you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Appreciate it. So StudioPod, as you mentioned, is a full-service podcast production studio, helping both individuals and companies create their podcasts. Our aim is to allow our clients, whether you're, again, an individual or an organization, be involved with the editing process as much as you'd like. For many of our clients, they want to get involved. They want to get their hands dirty. They want to see the edits and the changes, because we work with a full editing team, about 8 people that we have on staff that we would then give access to then upload each version of their show or episode into Descript. Now, why do we do this? One, because we think that's very important that our client can see the differences. And 2, Descript allows us to do so. So previously, if I can explain just a little bit more background on what we had to do, we would use tools such as Google Drive or Google Docs. We would have to use tools such as Dropbox for the different links. We were using text and email and all these different ways of communication just to see the different versions of V1 to V3, and in this case, we have V4. So if you think about that, that's a lot of back and forth on email. That's a lot of time stamping that the client would have to do, or they wouldn't be able to even notice if it wasn't for a tool like Descript. So with Descript, what we're able to do, as you can see here on the left-hand side within the different compositions, we can upload all of our raw audio. So we have multiple different interviews in this particular show that we're doing. We have Dave and Justin, Dave and Chris, Ron and Dave, TJ and Dave. These are all were recorded in separate instances. So we uploaded all of those separately. I then, or our editors, can come into here and make comments of what we need to remove, as well as see if all the different crutch words that we have to get removed if we wanted to do that. So after our team would then send it over to the editing team, they would then upload the first version. And then from there, we can start doing all the things that Jay had talked about and start to really get collaboration in place. And this is where the comments really come into play, right? So we talked about the different versions. We like using the left-hand version control here as our main way to control each composition that's going to be uploaded. That way, visually, our clients can not only see the changes, they can hear them and read them with each new composition, which is extremely powerful. Because if you just send over a Dropbox link, excuse me, like you had to do previously, it's kind of hard to identify what has actually been changed. Whereas if you can come into here and actually see, okay, from version 1 to version 2, we have all these different changes. And then now on the right-hand side, if we give the permissions to our point of contact on the client side to make changes, or even come in and do things like strike through or comments or any heavy editing that we'd allow them to do in Descript, our editors now see that. And then when they go into their DAW, like Pro Tools or Adobe Audition or whatever one that you guys may like, they can then make the changes as well, upload it back into Descript, and now we have that iterative process going back and forth on the left-hand side with the different versions.
That's awesome. That's a great way of working. Now, how did that come to be?
Yeah, well, we knew we wanted to work with editors, and we knew that our clients wanted to be involved in the process. As we did in many interviews, as we started out the business, we would continually ask, what can we do to make you feel a part of the process? And the changes were, or the answers were same over and over again. We want to be involved. We want to actually see the edits. We want to be able to request and make changes, because we know, in this case, we have a CEO who's interviewing different people within the organization. Our main point of contact there, for example, he doesn't want the CEO to have access to Descript or listen to the files. He just wants to get the final version, but they want to be able to change what the CEO is saying, because they know him the best. They want to make sure that he is coming out to sound the best that he can possibly sound. This is where it kind of comes into play. And that's just something you couldn't do with Google Docs. It's just something you couldn't do in a 100 email thread or a back and forth group chat that we had to do previously.
Awesome. TJ, question for you. Why would the editors be using Audition and then have to re-upload it back to Descript? And I'll further add, I was thinking to like, just make your changes right here.
Yeah, it's a great question. So our editors are professionally trained in Pro Tools and Audition. They've been working in there their whole lives. There's a lot of different, gonna make sure I plug in my computer here real quick. They got to make sure that they're able to do all the nuts and bolts that those allow you to do that you can't necessarily do in Descript, and they're just more comfortable in doing that. And I don't really want to mess up their process. They're equally as efficient as being in Pro Tools as Descript, but if they upload it into Descript, then I don't have to be in Pro Tools, and then our clients don't have to be in Pro Tools. Oops, sorry about that.
Got it. So in this workflow, and this is really interesting, and why so many people use Descript in so many different ways. You're kind of using it as almost like your asset management, your review and approval, your collaboration hub. What Pleasure Central Radio is asking here is, yeah, you could do all of your editing here and use this same workflow, but you're actually just kind of using Descript as a kind of a collaboration tool.
Exactly. And again, we want our clients to be involved in the process and visually read and hear where the changes are coming from. So while you can do many things inside of Audition or Pro Tools, that you may not be able to do in Descript per se, but what you can do in Descript, what you can't do in Pro Tools is, again, read it and see and actually make the changes. And, and it can be quite daunting to give, someone who has no idea around sound engineering or has any sort of like audio editing history to just say, hey, let us know how to make a marker in Pro Tools and show us like what you want to make where you want the change to happen. That's never going to happen. We don't want that to happen, but being able to do it in Descript is key.
Awesome. So maybe a follow-up question. For those of us making all the edits in Descript, we probably wouldn't need to have the multiple versions in the left-hand composition window, Rebecca asks. What would you recommend?
Yeah, it's a great point. You wouldn't necessarily have to do it if you don't want to. We like to do it as it's a way to control and see the differences. So if you wanted to come in here and, for example, you wanted this to be your final version, this COVID part 1 V2, you can absolutely come into here and play and make all the changes you want. I know myself, it's a personal preference. I like seeing a very clean Descript. I want there to be a final version that when we come in here and we've done our edits, we've done it into here, we can actually, when we come in here and made the edits, we can then share it with anybody across the team using the share function. And then this is one thing I do want to point out, that when you have your final version, or when we have our final version, we share this link right here. We do can comment, and what that allows, let's say the executive or the CEO on this particular composition and project that we're working on right now, they don't have to download Descript. We lower the barrier entry of them being able to approve it. They can add in comments. They can't make changes. And then from there, anything that they want to have changed, we can see the comment, and then we can make that that change very quickly ourselves. So for example, if, and this goes to your question earlier, or the question that popped up earlier, if there is something that's a quick change, like we need to get rid of this section right here, we don't need to send that back to our editor. That's something that Julian and myself and the Studio Pod team can do very, very quickly. We make sure there's no continuity issues. We go ahead and hit the strike through button, and then now it's been removed. We can then delete it if we want to, but I would never recommend doing that. But you can make the change, copy it, duplicate it, add it as a new composition, or just leave it how it is. That way, in this case, the CEO can listen and they have the most updated version.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's also another way of working. When Rebecca was going in here and being like, no, I'm going to use Descript as the editor. I've seen all of Jay's amazing YouTube live sessions, so I know how to edit and do these changes myself. I know how to make them sound good. I'm just going to do them. But you're also showing that, like, yeah, things can come in and somebody says, you know what, remove the intro. Like, that company's no longer the sponsor, or, you know, remove this. Somebody listens to it and says, remove the section on X. You can just go in, trim it out. I also basically only use Strikethrough. So just for people, there's also keyboard shortcuts for everything. So Strikethrough, or we call it ignore, is if you're on Mac, Command delete when you have something selected. If you want to just delete it, just hit the delete key. Mm-hmm. I use Strikethrough because it allows me to visualize and have my collaborators see what I've removed. When you hit the delete key, you know, we do show that like an edit was made. There's like a tiny little, you know, arrow that appears that shows that an edit did occur. So if you just hit delete, you know, you'll be able to see that like something happened, and you can see that little thin line. And TJ, just for fun, can you make the Descript window a little bit wider? Ah, there we go. Awesome. Cool. So yeah, that's going to just show that like an edit was made, and you'll always see those. Fun fact that I will ask, or not ask, that I will mention, if TJ, I'll do this as a quiz. Do you know how to export a transcript that, look at this, Rebecca read my mind. Do you know how to export a transcript that doesn't have the strikethroughs in there?
I believe so. So if you go through, you go share, export, you can do, I believe, the text, and then you can choose the marker. Oh, there's something here. I don't know if I got it all the way. I think I'm close though.
You are so close, and actually that would be a great place to do it. Would be like show strikethrough or don't show strikethrough. So we have this feature. So close that. We have this feature that I'd recommend you do when you get to like the final version. So let's do me a favor on this one. Let's pretend this is the final version. Mm-hmm. Next to the composition name, hover over next to the composition name on the left. See the ... duplicate that. So you're going to duplicate that, rename it to indicate that it's like the final version. Yeah. And that's the best way to jinx your files, to just call it final. That means it's never going to be final. So look, here we got our final one. And we want to export this without showing all this stuff in here. And also you want to kind of clean up all the edits. So click on the ... and then say flatten composition or flatten tracks, and just say all tracks. So think of this again with your favorite Google Docs or Word analogy. This is like accept all changes. So what this is doing is rendering the audio file into one solid audio file with no edits in there. It's making it smaller, so that way that's a smaller file that you have to lug around. And also, it's going to create a version of the composition that has accepted all of those strikethroughs. So all the times that there was a strikethrough, all the times there were edits, are just going to appear as one single transcript. And then now TJ would go through the either clicking on the share button, or he'd be there we go. So what that was doing was rendering out a solid file. You can see all the strikethroughs have been changed. And then when you want to export the transcript, TJ will actually practice his newfound keyboard shortcut. He'll just press Command K, popping up the quick switcher, and then he'll type in transcript. Because you can just tell you can just tell Descript what you want to do. Because we don't know what transcript is, you can just type in export. There you go. And then hit return or press that. And then he'd export text. And that would be how you get your transcript in the format you want without the labels in there. One more thing that Richard, does Strikethrough essentially have the effect of delete on audio? Yes, it is identical to deleting as far as the edits that will happen. It's just Strikethrough just allows you to visually see that part of the text and audio has been removed.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I'll add in here too, Jay, is for us, and we'll go back into our version here that had all the strike-throughs. When we work with our editors or we're working with a larger team, we say we never use the delete, right? Because we want to be able to see those changes. If we were going to delete, we have to be 150% confident that we're never going to be adding that back in. It's just, obviously with version control, we can see what we saw earlier, where you can see the changes that have been made. But for us, when we go in and we make a strike through or we do the ignore function, we are unequivocally saying to our editors that we want this removed, right? This is something that we want to get removed. Don't worry about it. If there's something that needs a little bit more context, that's when we bring in the comment. So for example, here, we can say, can we use the fade in music? Or if I come into here, you know, standalone quote for static post for audiogram. There's a little bit more color that we need to provide on any of these comments, not just we need it removed. Perhaps there's a little bit of background noise. Perhaps there's a little bit of mic bleed that that wasn't caught. Those are things that we need to have our editors handle. So then when they go in and they add it back in, we can see those changes.
Awesome. Awesome. Before we dive more into your workflow, Eric had another question. I don't know the answer to this. Are you able to duplicate a composition and keep the comments from the previous version?
Yeah, so if you just duplicate it right here, actually, let's try it right now.
Flying without a net.
There we go. That makes it fun. So I duplicated, and so no comments. So I guess the answer there would be no, but keep me honest, Jay. I don't think you can keep the comments. No, I think, which in some ways kind of makes sense that's like, it's one moment in time, it's one version. So the comments are kind of always tied to there. The other one that Eric asks, that Eric, we're getting all sorts of points because I don't really know these. Can you export a Word doc with all the comments referenced from the right column? Yeah, so that is something that I believe that if you go, when we saw earlier, if we went to the, I believe it was K, and we did the export. There you go, Jay, I'm doing it for you.
Nice.
If we were to export it, you would get all the comments, I believe, here. We usually don't go outside of Descript ourselves. For us, we think it's a bit redundant to export this into a document just because we do have Descript as a live, living, breathing document. So I have to double check on that one. But for us, we just stay directly in Descript. We don't see a need to go and export it somewhere else. However, the point that I showed earlier, if we went into the share functionality and I have this URL here, if the point of this is you want to be able to share this with all the comments, if you were to share these this URL with anybody, you would then get all the different comments within that URL that you're then sharing it to everyone with. So if I was to share this with the group that's listening, you guys would be able to see everything within not just this composition, but all the other compositions with the edits that have been made to it.
Absolutely. Awesome. So, yeah, so maybe just to really reinforce the point, do you want us to kind of walk us through one more time? When are you sharing it out? Who are you sharing it out to? And kind of what instructions are you giving the various collaborators for how you want them to stay organized? Because like you are part of the value add you're doing is to create a process. So that way people can just hop on the train and know it's going somewhere.
Yeah. So it's a bit hard to tell here because we have all of our different versions here. But if you can imagine, we initially start with all of our 3 original pieces of audio here from the different types of interviews that we performed. And that leads to a version 1. Once we've gone in and we've made our edits, we will then go ahead, hand it back to the editing team. They'll bring it back into the script. And then what we can do is share and copy this link right here. So I got this by clicking the 3 dots. I went to copy this link. And then we can share this link of this composition to anybody that we want to provide access to. Again, that can be, usually it's to our clients that a group of clients within the same organization that don't need to do any editing. We want them to just we want them to just add comments, give us a little bit more color. What do they think? Removed. Maybe like, oftentimes we get like, hey, we want to elongate the transition music. Oftentimes we get, let's raise the volume of the transition music. Let's move it into a place that's a little bit more dramatic of a feel. Let's add it to somewhere where it's going to be more energetic, things like that. And so by copying this link, that will then share this specific composition. And that way they can make the comments like Naomi did here on the right-hand side. And then from there, we can have an active conversation. Once we have confirmed with them, whether usually it's going to be into script somewhere that it's been done, or they just shoot us again an email or text or what happened. That's the only time that we ever try to communicate that way. We'll then take these edits, we'll QA them, so quality assure them, and then send it back over to the editing team, and then repeat the process over and over again. Once we get towards what we think is going to be the final version, as I mentioned earlier, we don't necessarily need to hand it over to the editors. We can make the changes directly into Script, and then we can flatten and export the file, and then upload it to our hosting platform, or send the audio file to any of our clients that are doing an internal podcast, which is what you're looking at here.
Awesome. We got a question about, this is procedural. Is there a way to how can you basically track that a change has been done based on the comments? How do you guys go about doing this? Such a profound question that TJ has frozen. So what I would probably do on this one, while we're waiting for TJ's connection to kind of hop back online, certainly you can put in the replies. So if you hit reply on the comments there, and then you'd be able to easily just kind of add a note that like, yep, I got to this one. There's also a dismiss, and you're able to actually see all of the final edits. There we go. TJ has dropped offline. Flying without a net. This is why it's live. It's fun. So then you'd be able to actually see, all of the things that have been dismissed in your comments. A couple additional comments that we got in here. Let's see. Rebecca, very happy to help. Understands that the composition versioning better. No problem at all. TJ is back.
I'm back. We are back. Sorry about that, guys. Where'd you lose me?
No, all good. All good. I was just going through a couple questions. And this is the question we were wrapping on. Like, how do you actually keep track that like you've completed a task, or that something has been done?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, that just comes part of QAing it on our job. So we ensure that we just go through and listen to each change that's been made. So if I want to come in here and know that we need to lower some audio, or lower, the music within the transition spots that we have, or we want to make sure the changes have been made, we will just go in here and just compare it and go through and listen. So I can see here, this is at the 240 mark. If I go to the 240 mark within here, I can then go ahead and just listen to that directly. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Again, if I was to do this with, let's say, Dropbox or our old way of doing things, that would be a very, very long process. I would then have to find it in the Dropbox link. I then have to compare it to old timestamps. Here, I just easily reference where that happened. In this case, we have 338. I go check the 338, make sure it sounds good. It should sound good because it's been removed here. But again, because we're handing it to our editors and they bring it back in, that's where we QA it.
Awesome. So you've also showed me a few things that people might not be as familiar with. You've showed me how you guys are using markers, and then also how you're using highlighting. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this is something that is typically done in a Google Doc or in a Word doc. But again, while you do have inline editing and tools like those, you don't have the benefit of being able to listen to the audio like you do in Descript. So we like using the commenting and the highlighting function to really just add a little bit more color to our editors and give visibility to our clients of what we're going to make a change in. Or maybe they're giving color to us about what they want to have that change or where they want that change to happen. Now, we like to use markers and for things like music, for transition noises, for outro positioning, intro positioning. So for example, we can say, fade out music right here. Pretty simple. Let's start to fade out music here. And I can come in and add another one and say, or this is something frequently that we do. I'll go in here and I will comment and say, use the music here. Let's keep it simple. Right, so now our editors or anybody who has access to the Descript file can know that for this entire minute, we're going to have a little bit of intro music. But additionally, if I go down into the track in the bottom, I can see how long the intro music is playing for. So I can see with the music file itself, not just through the text down here, how long it's going for. And now this is really critical for us because we don't want, we've had situations, and Julie and I, we have our own show, and we've dealt with this where our intro music goes in way longer than it needs to go. And we can just, it's one thing to look at it on the text, but it's another thing to see it within the audio file. And that's where it really comes into play. So when I'm highlighting, I can actually say, see, oh, this is going to be a minute long. We need to cut this down by like half, if not by 3/4, as an example. Additionally, if we have different segments, which the show does, we go in and add different markers. So if I want to come in here, I like to use the marker up here, where I can just go in and add we can just do something like, say, sound effect. And then if I want to add more color to it, I then do the commenting. And so that way anyone that has access to the file can not only see the sound effect, but they'll be able to be mentioned within a commenting feature as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, fun fact. So you can add tons of markers. I do them as like kind of headings to stay organized. And so that is just command return is your keyboard shortcut, or you can do Command K and then type in marker. A lot of cool things that you could do. Another thing that you could do, this is something, TJ, I've seen some teams do some work on as a way of like providing feedback. Let's say there's a section that we're looking for music to be spotted on. Our team could actually have a very simple visual indicator. Why don't you select a sentence or a paragraph for me? And then on the highlighter in the toolbar next to the bold and the italics, right under there, just click that, and then let's say pick the pick green or something. And so now as you're skimming through, you have these like really fast ways of kind of seeing. And so if you click off of that, you'll see that this will always appear as green. And then now, just for fun, click on the search button in the left.
Yep, there we go.
There we go. And click on all the mint colored highlights. So now this is where you, across your entire project, let's say I was in charge of spotting sound effects or spotting music. I've seen some teams that just like highlight the stuff in green that needs music. That's kind of how they work. It's as simple as open this up, click in green, search by highlight color, and then you would just click on the search result, hit the tab key to start playing it, listen to it, spot your sound effect, go to the next one, or remove the highlight color to indicate.
Yeah, and I can give you a quick example of how that would work so you can see that here. So go here. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we have more populate. So I can easily, as Jay's talking about, I can just go from one to the other to the other.
Dave, so I understand that Amatech is celebrating.
There you go.
Dave, so I understand that Amatech is celebrating.
Go ahead and stop that, but I'm able to listen to each of them individually and easily find them with that search functionality. That's something that we don't use, but I can tell you right now, we're going to be using more and more, as it's a great way to identify certain things that our clients can easily go through, like, hey, Alex, hey, Julian, hey, Jorge, I've highlighted these different colors for you specifically to go through, as we know you're in charge of X, Y, and Z within the editing process.
Totally. So not only could you say like, you're in charge of the green highlights, but then I'll give our viewers one more thing. So let's click back to the composition view, TJ. So now we've got these things. What do we have? Like 2 or 3 things that are highlighted green in here. Click on the ... next to the composition name. I know everybody watching this is going to find all sorts of goodies here. So under copy highlights, copy all of the mint colored highlights. Now just grabbed 3 snippets that include the text and the audio. Now create a new composition and say, you know, this is the name of the composition is like 4J, you know, like for J to review or whatever. If you did have a lot of these, this could be a little play space, and now TJ can just paste, and there you go. Now these are taken from all across the session, and this is also a great way to kind of like pull selects from an interview. So that's the main kind of workflow that we designed this for. Would be you can go through and maybe, you know, yellow means this has to be, you know, in the main episode. Green could be this is for a different next week's episode, you know, and you can kind of do that up and pull selects.
Yeah, I can give you a real life example too here, Jay, that I know Julian, who's in, he will love this, is for audiograms. We are constantly looking for really highlighted, awesome, engaging snippets of all of our shows that we want to use for audiograms that we can share on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever that we want to push it out to. This is a great way to identify, hey, not only are these are the ones within the composition that we want to use, I'm going to add it to a new composition so then we can easily go through the audiogram process within Descript, which is going to be a whole nother webinar. But that's something that I know for Julian's sake, he's going to love using this tool going forward, and any of you guys listening should be as well. It's very nice. Absolutely.
So let's say, for example, the 4J to review. These were our collection of audiograms, and Julian's got a big thumbs up on this. So do me a favor, select the first sentence. That's a really good quote. Hit Command K and start typing the word audiogram. There you go. Hit return. Awesome. And now you see the templates put up. You could obviously, once you configure it with, you know, that episode's accent color and background image, could be cover art, whatever, that's going to be kind of in memory for this project. And so that'll be the new default. So then you'd configure this based on what you see as the selection. So now that's a easy way for us to go through. You know, you'd hit publish, that would create the audiogram, and then you don't have to wait around for it. As soon as you hit publish, it's just going to crank. Then you can do the next one in line and the next one in line, and there you go.
Yeah, it's streamlined a huge amount of our back end effort, if you will, of creating an audiogram. Instead of having to use a separate tool, we can use Descript. We can actually, you know, one of our clients loves picking out the audiograms. She's like, you guys can do all the edits you want. I just want to be in charge of the audiograms that you guys create and what the content should be. There you go. Very easy to organize and create it and develop it here.
Awesome. TJ, in the hopes I can show you something new and therefore other people here.
Yeah.
Do you know about putting your compositions in folders?
My compositions in folders. Yes, that is something that we do. Would you like me to go into our?
No, not your projects in folders.
No.
All right.
No,
so
okay.
You see add new at the bottom. You don't have to just, so you could add a folder. And so now because you see TJ has his like source material, the like segment 1 and 2, segment 3, segment 4, segment 5. I've seen some studios organize it as like sources, selects, you know, revisions, and then like final, you know, so that way, again, you know, you can use our search functionality to kind of navigate however you want. But yeah, same thing. You could have a folder called audiograms, and then all you'd have to do is, you know, click on the 4J to review, drag it into audiograms, and now you are kind of getting organized. So when I saw TJ had this many compositions on here, I was thinking, this is another great way to stay organized. Also would help when you're giving instructions to people on like what to review and what to ignore. People can clearly see like, whoa, don't stay out of the source material. That's not you. Don't touch that.
Yeah, this is something that's going to help us stay organized too going forward. I actually wasn't aware that you could do the folders, but it's something that we're going to use. As you can tell, I'm a little bit weird and I like having everything easily accessed here and like seeing everything in one spot. But you know what? Maybe some of this old material can be easily created into a folder, such as the original interviews that we did here.
Absolutely. Because I'm also a big fan of the keyboard shortcuts. TJ, I'm going to give you a challenge. You have to navigate to the TJ intro composition, but without using your mouse.
Okay, let's see if I can do this. We'll go to, I'm just going to go TJ. There you go.
You did use your mouse there, but that's fine.
Oh, without my mouse, okay.
So then the next one would be, so now you're starting to see these really fast workflows. If you wanted to go to audio or segment 4, and I want you to go to 39 seconds in segment 4. So you're just using the arrow keys and then go to 39 seconds. You just start 39 and type in S, hit return.
Wow.
There you go. Cursor is immediately located there. So these are just some ways that you can really start plowing through and get really fast to Descript. I'm
learning stuff left and right over here, Jay. This is amazing.
Well, I had no idea that when you in the 3-dot menu next to the composition name, you could copy link right from there. All right. So Eric asking in all sorts of awesome questions. Let's go. Is there a way to save previous audio files to transcribe words correctly for future uploads? I think I know the answer. When a speaker says that, it spells out correctly every time based on the stored terminology or saved audio word list. And then he goes to kind of soften it a little and saying, like, this could be a stretch question. So don't feel like a fool if we don't know the answer. Do you know the answer, TJ?
I do know the answer.
Do you?
Well, I don't think I know the answer. If it will learn, I think that's something you may need to tell me, and that might be something new on my end.
All right. So like click on one of your full episodes.
Let's just do this one here.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, we see like it always capitalized COVID, it always capitalized SARS. You have somebody named Jim Davis. Like, so you're having some like proper names, proper nouns, stuff like that. Eric, thank you for tossing this one to me. This is a feature that is about 2.5 weeks old. TJ doesn't know it. Julian doesn't know it, I'm sure. So click on the caret next to the project name. This is where we accessed the version history before. And you're going to click on Transcription Glossary. Now, this is actually going to be for all projects that are ever created in the future, and this one in TJ's drive. TJ, you would want to add in like your name and your last name and Julian's last name. As you're basically, you could just dump in proper names, proper nouns, whatever that toxin was. You can add in your favorite toxins and terminologies. Basically, just dump that in there, hit the done button, and then that'll be stored in every future project that you open up and create. We'll have that functionality in there, so that way our transcription wizard will automatically default to that. As somebody with a last name that never gets recognized correctly, and frankly, even the word Descript wasn't always correct. So you should also add that in there too.
Yeah, that will be super helpful. I know for last names, for names of companies that are a bit odd, that it doesn't always get recognized. That will be a crucial function that we'll be able to use going forward and be able to share. It's nice when you can give a nice clean Descript file that's been transcribed to anyone who's going to have access to it.
Awesome. Let's see. Do you give advice to people? So Richard asks a question about, he's had times that he's had, let's put this up here. We've got nothing to hide in this YouTube live stream. He's had times when there's, 2 people working in a composition at the same time. And it looks like they feel like they've lost some work. Do you give people advice on this?
Yeah. So, the key thing here, and this happens to us all the time. One, you want to make sure that everybody has their own login with Descript, or you give an access to then when they've logged in, so you can see who's making changes. If you're doing a shared login, that's going to be, it's a no-no, first of all, but it's also bad from an editing standpoint, because that way you can never check who did what change when. Getting rid of some bad habits in our mind, the delete function, get rid of delete, use strike-throughs or the ignore function. Commenting on strike-throughs as well is something that's very, very popular. I know it's a little bit of double work, but if you have multiple people working in a composition, it really allows you to see the changes that are being made, and it gives you a track record of what's being done. I know it could be overkill, but comment as much as you possibly can. It will just allow for so much easy visibility into what changes are being made, and that could be from a marker, it could be from a filler word removal, it could be the strike-throughs.
Oh, we froze again, didn't we? All right. You got the point, though. Comment as much as possible. That's really the key takeaway. The live stream is set up to mute somebody when they've made a point abundantly clear, and then I'll take it from here. Really, what I think happened in your situation, Richard, TJ nailed it on the first thing. Under no circumstances should somebody be logging in under the same account. And if you think about that, it kind of makes sense. Descript is periodically trying to sync your latest changes to the cloud. So you would have, Jay's working in San Francisco and he has a version here. And then if Jay is magically working in Virginia and then his changes are being synced like a few seconds later, there's a huge potential that things are going to get lost. And frankly, our system wasn't designed to have somebody in the same place at the same time doing different amounts of work. That's been the biggest challenge I've seen when people are trying to figure out what's going on. Awesome. So let's just kind of recap what we've covered today. So Descript is, our goal is to make it as collaborative as using a Google Docs. And the same functionality, the permissioning, the adding and inviting people to your drive, the allowing people to comment, and some people are comment only, some people are edit only, being able to just share the URL and the right project will show up at the right place. That's really something that is kind of the core principles of what we're doing here. Since we actually did make it to the end of the webinar and only just lost TJ at the very end, I think we're going to wrap here. We had a ton of great questions. I really appreciate everybody. Maybe the last question to get this one in for Richard. Does it matter what type of account they have? In our case, is different users, but I think one was a free account. So no, it shouldn't matter. So in terms of collaboration workflows, collaboration features, anybody can collaborate with anyone else. And in fact, it is good to know that if you are a free, or if you have an account, you can invite people to join and collaborate as free users. You can do that both by inviting them to the individual composition, or the other thing you can do is invite them to your drive. So, we have our drive. Let's say it's Jay's drive. Oh, heck, I will just screen share on my screen because I can. Let's see. Right, let's do that. To end up, you're looking at my screen. Great, let me find Descript. Descript is right here. So what you're seeing, I would select the drive I have here. You can see I have a number of different drives. I'll select my test drive, and then I could invite members. So when I say invite members to the drive, I can invite somebody as an editor. So let's say my colleague, I can invite Chris. I can invite Chris as an editor, and as an editor, he would be able to do anything to all of the projects in this drive. What I'm using more and more, and I want to encourage everybody, think about the freelancers and the editors and the collaborators that you most work with on a regular basis. Invite them as a free user. As a free user to your drive, they will be able to comment on everything in your drive. By default, they'll be able to see everything in your drive. This is just going to make collaboration much faster with them in the future. And then, of course, this just notes on the bottom, they can actually use our screen recorder and edit up to 3 projects of their own before they would then have to upgrade their own accounts. So just useful stuff to kind of help get you going. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for tuning in. Everybody, it was a real pleasure joining you today. It was a pleasure having TJ, Bonaventura, and Studio Pod as our focus this week. We are always looking for feedback on Descript, not only on the webinars, but on the product. If you'd like to give us feedback, go to feedback.descript.com. Descript is unlike most any other company I've worked at for about 20 different reasons, but one is that we seriously look at all of the product feedback that comes in through this link. We have an internal Slack channel, so when somebody on this live stream upvotes something, we all see it. The other area I'd encourage you to join us is Discord. So join us on our Discord community, discord.descript.com will get you there. It's your chance to continue this conversation with people on the live stream, but just take it on text. You can share things that you've created with Descript. You can ask questions, share workflows. Think of this as a great resource for you as you're going. Last thing I want to tell you about is help. There'll be a time you're in Descript. You need help. There's a button in the bottom right which has a question mark, but you get your Gmail window already open. Just go to help.descript.com. If you do need something, here's what it will look like. You can type in your questions. So if you typed in audiogram, we'd pull up a help article for you. If you need to submit a support request, click on the button in the upper right, submit a request. The window will look like this. You just tell us what your request is, and we'll get back to you very soon. All right. Thank you all. I have no idea what next week's live stream is, but to make sure that this is evergreen content, I will not tell you what the next live stream is. The next live stream is whatever you choose to watch in YouTube right now. Thank you all for joining us. Chris, thanks for your help. And we'll thank TJ and Julian from Studio Pod. Have a good week, everybody.